Good evening, everyone. I am Shujin Triple Kawanishi here in Second Life. Welcome to When I Was Your Age, podcast where I'm going to go ahead and talk to you about stuff now when I was your age, back from the 80s and maybe 70s or even the early 90s. If you have suggestions on stuff that you would like me to cover, please, by all means, send me an email over at shujintribble@gmail.com. Easy enough. And I'll be more than happy to cover pretty much any topic. So far, I've gotten one, and I'm unfortunately very unprepared to handle the topic so far on that. So it's not that I haven't gotten it. I'm still working on it. I've got stuff that, I have to try to figure it out. What I want to talk to you guys about tonight is sound editing when I was your age. Now, some of you are relatively familiar with a lot of the computer programs now that you can use for sound editing, not the least of which is the freeware program known as Audacity. That's a program that I use over here on Ubuntu Linux. And it's a good program. I mean, it does what I need it to do. I don't need to go, completely bananas on it, but it does the job. But before there was computer editing, of which computer editing was very, very, very difficult and expensive when I was your age, there were other ways of doing it. Now, you could go ahead and do this. Some of you might recognize what this little piece of plastic is that I have in my hand right now. This is an audio cassette tape. In this particular case, this one is actually from 2004, June of 2004. This was my radio show that I had on FM radio for a little while called Bite Me. It was computer stuff. And the Mad Trivia Party with Dr. Bill. However, when I was your age, this not only doubled as audio recording, but also data recording. This was one of the ways that we stored data before there were disk drives, or in addition to. But I'm going to talk to you a little bit more about that another time. I want to talk to you about editing sounds, editing music. Now, at the time, when I was a kid, only ways that you could really do it was to have more than one tape player and play one while you recorded into a second or even a third, as the case may be, which got really nuts because that meant that you needed to have one tape player playing into some kind of a splitter or a combiner or a mixer or something in order to get into another tape recorder. One of the inherent dangers was if one tape player's spindle was playing faster or slower than the other, you would inherently get differences in pitch because one would be going faster and recording faster, one would be going slower and recording slower. So you tried to record a whole bunch of stuff and you wanted it to be the same pitch. No, didn't work that way. So that was one thing that we tried to do. Now, those of you that are older are going to know exactly what I'm talking about. This is hardware. Back in the late mid-20th century, this was sound editing. A straight edge, a ruler. Usually something that was, magnetically neutral, shall we say. A roll of tape. And an X-Acto knife. Now, of course, to paraphrase from Red Green, I know you've probably already worked this out for yourself, but let me go ahead and get this for all the slow people. When I was your age, the only way to properly edit sounds were to take the tape and to pull the tape out. Now, unfortunately, I don't have anything that I can take the tape out with. Just trust me on this one for a second. But what you would have to do is put it into a special machine that had a reed head underneath and open up the tape so that it ran back and forth. And you would actually run the tape back and forth over the head and listen to it. Until you found the right spot that you wanted to stop it at. And you would look for it, and you would find that one spot, and with your X-Acto knife, you would cut exactly there. And then you would have to re-loop it on the reel, run it back and forth again until you found the spot that you wanted to edit again, and then cut that one out. And keep going and keep going and keep going until you had the pieces that you wanted. And then, once you had all those little pieces, you had to splice them all together with tape. Now, if this was just any other piece of recording technology, this wouldn't be so hard to deal with, except for one small problem. Some of you who have dealt with tapes before might remember they're two-sided. Which means you've got, on this little itty-bitty piece of tape here, you've got two tracks for left and right channel going in one direction, and left and right channel going in the other direction. So you had to make sure when you were taking out the pieces that you didn't drop it. You didn't lose track of, no pun intended, what was the top track and what was the bottom track. Because if you forgot, then you got to go back and you got to go back through it and find out, do I have the right piece? Lord help you if there was a breeze suddenly in the room if you didn't nail everything down. But what was really, really cool also about these was that in the 80s, like I said, you've got two tracks, left and right going in one direction, left and right going in the other direction. But for those of us that were doing our own little garage bands, there were a small number of 4-track cassette recorders. So that instead of having a giant mixing board where you've got, 4 8 inputs and you're putting them all into 2 tracks and mixing it all down at once, you actually had the ability of recording all 4 tracks simultaneously in one pass. Now, you had to make sure, of course, that you were only reading it in one direction. But if you had your own little garage band and you had one guy mic'd for vocals and one guitar, input and the drums mic'd and a bass or something else mic'd, all 4 of those tracks, all onto one cassette. Now, of course, you had to do your own mix afterwards to try and get it into something that approximates good sound. But you still had the opportunity. And could you still splice it? Sure. But at that point, you had the ability to go back and forth on your own and download it, so to speak, offload it onto another cassette on a different machine. And one more thing. It wasn't just audio. I remember that there was a little video camera, a toy that would record black and white onto one of these. And you could give it to your kids, just drop it in, charge up the battery, and just go ahead and start filming. So, even though we don't use these anymore, and I have a large collection of these from when I was on FM radio, these damn things, ubiquitous as they were incredibly versatile with the right technology. So this was audio recording, and all this was audio editing when I was your age. Thank you very much for sticking with me. I'm going to be taking a little bit of time off to collect up some stuff and see what else I can cover for you guys. If you have suggestions, recommendations, please, by all means, leave me a message over here on YouTube. You can subscribe and you'll get notices when I put other stuff out. You can find me over on Facebook and Twitter and G+, under Shujin Tribble, shujintribble@gmail.com, and we will see what we can do. I'm hoping sometime in the near future I'll be able to have someone else on to speak with me about some of this other stuff. So if you have recommendations on that angle, please, by all means, let me know. We will see what happens. In the meantime, as always, thank you. I really hope that you guys enjoy this as much as I do. And of course, as always, I wish you the peace I no longer have. I wish you the strength that I've learned. I wish you well. Take care of yourselves, and we'll see you soon. Good night.
You know what's true before you can say boo. You'll be my age too.